Okay. Is everything good? Thank you, Kathy. Perfect. Just in time. Just what I needed. Another cup of coffee. Thank you very much. Now, please. Are we live? We are. Good. All right, you can go. But don't go too far. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome. My name is Luke. Welcome to today's live show. We're going to be doing some English words and phrases. We're going to be talking about idioms. We're going to be talking about a little bit about pronunciation. Our theme today is the end of the world, of course. But within that theme topic, it's just a topic, right? There are a lot of interesting things to explore that we can use much more, let's say, broadly to describe things, explain things, of course. Idioms and phrases especially can be used in so many different situations. So we're going to explore that today. I hope you're all having a good Friday. I hope you're all having a good week. I hope you have interesting weekend plans. For me, can't believe I just said for me. Naturally. Usually I do it sarcastically. I just said it for real. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to have my parents come up from Ohio for the weekend, so that should be fun. Probably have some tasty food and maybe do a bit of hiking around or shopping. Who knows? I don't know for sure. They'll be up for a while, and that is usually a good time. It seems like a lot of people have been visiting me recently, and I'm not quite sure why, but that's the way it is, so that's fine. Welcome, everybody, again. I'll answer your questions. So today we have some things to cover. We're going to be looking at we're going to be pulling some language out of articles. We're going to be talking about some useful phrases. We're going to be looking at words for preparation, preparing things. For those of you who have bunkers already, maybe you don't need it, but we'll see. If you have questions about anything related to today's topic or anything else, whether that's words and phrases, pronunciation, idioms, culture, grammar, or penguins, whatever it may be, just ask and I'll try my best to answer. We do these every Wednesday and Friday, okay? So in addition to videos that you see on the channel, we go live. When I say we, what I mean is I, but, well, me and Kathy. Kathy's here, she's just not on the stream. Right, Kathy? Right, Kathy? That's right. So Wednesday and Friday around this time, which is currently 12:34 p.m., trying to make it earlier and earlier by request, of course. I actually prefer to do later, but trying to make it earlier and earlier. Thinking about starting other streams as well. I'm thinking about doing one on movies and TV shows specifically, but we'll see how that goes. What else? Oh, I just launched a course yesterday. If you want to check out my courses, of course you can do that. Of course you can do that on my website, which is in the link in the description. However, for those of you here live, I have initially launched the course on it's up first on Udemy. So I'm going to share, if it's okay with you, I'm going to share the link to that in the chat, and this is a special discounted price. So it's basically the lowest price that you can possibly get on the course. The course, I guess I should say what it's about. The course is about common English mistakes, right? The most common English mistakes that English learners make, and I cover those things in depth. It's over 4.5 hours of lessons, over 40 lessons in the course. It's pretty detailed. It covers a lot of things. It covers some grammar stuff. It covers quite a few things. So there you go. That's the link to that if you're interested in checking it out. I think it's a good one. I personally am quite proud of it. So yeah, feel free to check that out. The launch price, I believe, expires in 3 days, and this course was launched yesterday. Already quite a lot of people taking it, which is great. Always great. Okay, let's see. Oh, you know what? Let's just because I want to. Can we just quickly watch before we get into it? I just want to watch the preview lesson of the course while we're here, if that's cool. Then we'll get into our first topic for today and keep those questions coming. All right? Whoa, what did I just copy and pasted my own link to myself? What the heck? Hold on. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. All right. I know this is not particularly exciting. Okay, let's pop over here. How did you hear that? That's a wonderful sound. All right, here we go. This is the course introduction. It's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But if English is not your first language, mistakes can sometimes cause problems. Maybe something you said doesn't sound natural, or you caused a misunderstanding because you used the wrong word or phrase. Maybe you can't understand what people are saying all the time. Or maybe in a movie or a TV show, you can't quite catch what the characters are saying. It's very common. The good news is that you can use your mistakes as tools. Very true. To improve your English, to become a more confident, natural English speaker. Over the last 10 years, I've helped hundreds of thousands of students around the world improve their English. Along the way, I've collected the most common English mistakes, and I've put them in this course. Now, throughout the course, we're going to be looking at the blackboard just like this. I'll be writing just like this, except words and not just lines. And we're going to be talking about many different things. We'll be focusing on odd phrasing, on issues with verbs and different word forms. We'll be talking about redundancies and counting things and comparatives and superlatives and some things that you may have never thought about before that maybe native English speakers will notice immediately, and much, much more that I wasn't able to fit on the board here. So if that sounds good to you, if you're ready to use mistakes as tools to become a more natural, confident English speaker, sign up for the course, and I will see you in the first lesson. Well said, Mr. Pretty. Well said. Amazing. Yeah, so anyway, that's the trailer for the preview sort of introduction of the course, if you want to check that out. Okay, enough of that. Enough of all of that stuff. I see we have people joining, which is great. That's fantastic. It's good to have Zishan here, and Dimitri, and Karina, and Daniel. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so today's topic, or rather the theme of today, is useful English for the end of the world. It's helpful to have a common theme. We're not just going to be talking about the end of the world, of course, but it's a good way to sort of surround an idea with the language that's useful for that type of thing, right? And I don't know. I feel like tables and chairs are just not super interesting as a topic, so I wanted to go with something a little more fun. Now, I want to get into first some actual news stuff, but as we do that, to kind of explore some language that's used that you may be seeing in the news about the economy in particular. Okay, so let's start. I think let's start there. Right now in July of 2022, which is where we are at this moment on the timeline of the universe, July 29th, the global economy is going through some trouble. The global economy, I'm from the US economy, there are a lot of problems right now. And you see that on the news. You hear a lot of talk about a recession. Well, this language is all can be a little confusing, the definitions between different things. Recession, and you see things like red hot something and maybe something looming. We're going to look at a couple of articles and pull out some of the language that you typically see associated with economic issues, okay? I've got two articles. We're going to explore then how these can be used in other ways. We're going to pull them out of the articles and then kind of expand them and talk about how do we use these in daily life? How do we use these in regular spoken or written English, okay? So first, let's hop over here. We've got one from the United Nations. Global economy outlook worsens as global recession looms. So right there in the title, you have some, I think, really interesting language. You've got outlook and you have something looming. So let's write these down here. Outlook and looming. Now, right off the bat here, if you have an outlook, what does that mean? Well, that means you're looking out. Well, if we're talking about world events, what are we then talking about? Probably the future. And this is where we talk about forecasts. This is where we talk about predictions, for example. So when you talk about an outlook, you may talk about predictions, possibilities for the future based on current trends, right? Now, you could have different kinds of outlooks. An outlook could be positive, it could be good, it could be negative, it could be uncertain. Basically, this is what we think may or may not happen in the future, but it's not very specific. A prediction might be very specific. I predict that by October of 2022, any signs of a recession will have disappeared. Oh, okay, great. But if it's an outlook, it's a little broader, and we're talking generally about how the current state or current conditions or current trends may indicate something generally about the future. And it could be about a lot of different things. You could talk about your career outlook. What is your career outlook? It's with the skills I have and experience, it's not so good. I have a lot of skills and experience. I've been working in this field for 10 years. I have a very strong career outlook. But this could be negative or positive, right? Could be good, could be bad. But looming is almost always a negative connotation. If something is looming, it's up ahead of you like a dark storm cloud moving toward you. It is in the distance, but it is coming up. It is coming in the direction of where you are, or you're moving toward it. And we think of it often in a scary way. So when you see looming, it's usually going to be in reference to things like a recession. A recession would be the economy slows down for a period of time. There's a technical term that defines, or there's a technical calculation that defines what a recession is. But generally speaking, we can say the economy is slowing down to a certain level, stops growing essentially, and may shrink. So a recession could loom, but also maybe Monday is looming for you because you don't want to work on Monday and you love the weekend. Monday is looming. You could have fears that loom ahead of you. Maybe something that's coming up like an examination, a looming examination is getting closer and closer. So anything that you would consider to be negative or not something you're looking forward to would be used in that way. Okay, we just looked at the title here, so we should move on for sure. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here just so you can see this well. Okay, wait. Okay, there we go. Okay, the outlook was darkening. Okay, so darkening is similar to looming. It's getting darker, okay? Economic counselor, blah, blah, blah. The world may soon be teetering on the edge of a global recession. Now, we'll write that down. We'll write some of those down, but let's just go a little bit further. The baseline forecast for global growth is for it to slow from 6.1% last year to 3.2% in 2022. With higher than expected inflation, especially in the US and largest European economies, global finance conditions are becoming tighter. Okay, so we have a few interesting things here. I'm not going to write down darkened, but I want to focus on a few of these things. The world may soon be teetering on the edge of a global recession. Okay, so let's hop back over to the board here. Teetering on the edge. And then also we have tighter, becoming tighter. Okay. Now for these, if you're teetering on an edge, you could go to safety or you could fall off. And we can probably imagine here some kind of cliff face, right? Like this. And someone is right there on the edge of the cliff. I don't know how they got there, but they're right there and they're about to possibly fall off, or they could, if they maintain their balance, return to safety. So if you're teetering, usually there are two possibilities. Teetering on the edge of a mental breakdown. Teetering on you usually say the negative possibility, not the positive, because we assume the positive. Teetering on the edge of personal financial disaster, bankruptcy, something like that. You're teetering on the edge of making a very risky decision. Now, that could be not necessarily bad. A risky thing could be dangerous, but maybe I'm teetering on the edge of investing $100,000 in this risky thing. Well, that could turn out well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but it could also be bad. So we're often talking about these things that could go wrong, or we could find safety. And we're right in the middle. Sometimes that means we have control, and sometimes that means we don't have control. We doesn't. Becoming tighter is something we can use in this global context, this global situation, but it could also be used for personal finances. Think about tightness, right? If something is tight, if your clothes are too tight, they're constricting you, you can't move as well, right? And so if you say things are a bit tight right now. And that's a very common expression people will use. Things are a bit tight right now, and they might add with money. It means for their personal financial situation, they don't feel safe to spend and spend and spend. It doesn't mean that they're broke. It doesn't mean necessarily that they don't have money. It just means they're trying to be very careful and they don't have a lot of extra money to spend. They have to budget carefully, okay? So that feeling of tightness can be used in both a personal sense and a broader, more global sense. And you can look up, if you're curious, what is the exact definition of how a recession is defined. I would be curious to know. So feel free to, if you figure that out, leave that in the comments, because I'm not exactly sure what the line is, what the lower limit is. Okay, back to the article. Here we go. 3 key economies with higher than expected inflation, especially, okay, I want to zoom back in here. With higher than expected inflation, especially in the U.S., large blah 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 blah. Okay, where's the phrase I was looking for? Okay, and in the Eurozone, growth has been, I'm right here. In the Eurozone, growth has been revised down to 2.6%, reflecting spillovers from the Ukraine war and tighter monetary policy. There's that word tighter again. Tighter, constricted, less room to move, right? Despite the global slowdown, inflation has been revised up in part due to rising food and energy prices. Okay. Now, this phrase here, I just want to highlight it, revised up and revised down. This is not something, I don't think I've ever actually used it before. It feels like a British English expression and maybe less common in America. I wonder if this is a British English publication, because revised up and revised down, either that means I don't know that phrase very well, not very comfortable with it, or it's not particularly common in American English. Okay, but I want to focus on this word here, spillover, right? And I wanted to also mention, what was the other one? Contracted despite slow down. Okay, spillover and slow down. So let's quickly write those down, and then we're gonna hop over to another article quickly. Spillover and slow down. Now notice, interesting English point here, that it's one word. Often if you have a word like a phrasal verb, but it is used as a noun, the two words are combined into one. But if they're used in an action where you're actually doing that, then they'll be separated into two. If you tell someone to do this, you'll say, hey, slow down, 2 words. But a slowdown is one word. Those 2 words, slow and down, are combined into a single noun, an economic slowdown. You see the same thing with words like workout and workout. I am going to work out, 2 words. I just finished my workout, 1 word. Okay. Takeoff would be another thing, like an airplane. After takeoff, 1 word. The plane will take off in 20 minutes, 2 words. Okay. Now, this slowdown is usually broad, fairly big picture, and not necessarily something that you would see in a personal financial situation. Tight, that word is used all the time for both. Slowdown is more like big trends, a slowdown in sales, a slowdown in economic activity. Slowdown describes sort of a general trend that's happening. And then spillover means something has gone from what it should be, its container, spilled over into another. So maybe there has been spillover from the housing situation where the price of wood was very high. I recently bought a house, and because the price of wood was so high, I had to pay a lot of extra money for the house because of that. Well, maybe that thing has caused another thing that usually it wouldn't affect that other thing, like, for example, people's ability to spend on cars. Maybe that is now affecting that somehow indirectly. That could be spillover. When one thing goes over its category into another category, you have spillover. Now, there might be a physical meaning of that. For example, there's a class that students are signing up for, and there are only 20 spots, and 35 sign up. Well, you have then maybe spillover, where instead of rejecting those 15 extra students, you say we're going to create a spillover classroom where those students who signed up after the cutoff are allowed in, and those we would say maybe spillover students. They're going over what we set as the limit. So this is also something that you can use fairly often in daily life. Okay, now a few things I want to look at in another one before this just very quickly. Okay, this is a different article. Fed jacks rates again. Okay, now forget about the headline. Fed is the Federal Reserve, the United States sort of central banking entity thing that it controls interest rates and so on. Jack the price up. They jacked it up. The prices are so jacked up. I'm jacked up on coffee. So to jack something up, I think, comes from a car. If you have a car that needs to be fixed, and then you take it into the repair shop, and at the repair shop, the mechanic puts it on a thing and lifts it up. Well, that's called a car lift, actually, the big one. Oh, if you repair it yourself, right, you have a flat tire, they don't use the little ones. But if you use the little one where you lift up the front of the car to change the tire, that is actually called a car jack. It's kind of ironic because a carjacker is a car thief. But a jack is something that lifts up the front of the car. So if you ever hear about something related to money, things being jacked up, and by the way, jacked up does have other meanings, right? I mentioned being jacked up on coffee. That means sort of amplified or pushed up. Well, it can be used for a car, lifting the car up with that thing to jack the car up. 1, 2, 3, 4, you're sort of pushing it upward with a device. You're jacking up prices, or prices are jacked up or being jacked up, or rates are being jacked up as a result of inflation, pushed upward, moved upward, maybe more than what is good or too high for most people, right? But usually you're talking about the ones doing it when you say that. We wouldn't usually say that it's just happening. For example, you wouldn't say inflation is jacked up, because inflation is just happening. It's a natural process. There's no person saying, I will now do inflation, right? But someone could make a decision to raise their prices in a restaurant. Well, the prices are getting so high recently. They keep jacking up the prices. Okay. All right, back to the article here. All right. We won't focus on breakout inflation. I want to get to a couple of specific phrases here. Where is the phrase that I wanted? Questions. The economy, cusp. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I don't want to talk about this one, but this is an interesting word. The cusp is similar to that one we talked about with teetering on the edge. On the cusp is right, almost about to, and then it goes over or doesn't, or doesn't go over. Okay. Stiffest, not stiffest. Where's my phrase here? Citing unemployment rate that's still nearly having again. There's that word again. Now jacked the central bank's overnight interest rate from near zero level between 2.5 blah blah blah. Where is the word sharply sharp? That's the one I was looking for. I'm going to actually do a search. There's the word I was looking for. Wait, is it in the other article? I've written down the words I want to cover. What? Don't tell me I had a third article that I pulled that one from. All right, that's fine. We'll skip sharply then. Maybe just worth mentioning because I can't find it. But often in this sort of situation where you have something going up or down and it's happening relatively quickly, right? You would describe that as a sharp increase or decrease. And often it'll be used as an adverb with ly at the end. So you would see drop sharply or increase sharply. A sharp increase would be used as an adjective. A sharp increase in inflation. A sharp decrease in unemployment, or a sharp increase in unemployment. A sharp drop, often instead of increase, you will see rise and drop. Sharp drop, sharp rise. What it suggests is that it's fairly sudden, or it's going up an extreme amount or down an extreme amount. Could be up or down. Either one, doesn't matter. It's like this or it's like this. And you could use that to talk about a mountain, a sharp drop, a sharp cliff edge. This would be a sharp drop. If this person falls off here, that's a very sharp drop down to a splat, right? So it's the same idea. Now, you could also use that in daily life. You could say, I've noticed a sharp increase in the number of spam emails I'm getting. Just suddenly increasing the number of spam that I'm getting. Or we've had kind of a sharp drop-off in, let's say, unnecessary meetings after the company I work for changed their policy and said, if you don't have to have a meeting, then communicate in the chat, just in chat. Don't have a meeting if you don't need to. So they changed a rule. And after that rule was changed, you had a sharp drop in that. So it can be used in a lot of different situations. It just suggests the sort of feeling of it being very high up or down, usually quite suddenly. Okay? Let's just take a quick look and see if there were any other ones that we wanted to talk about. Investors expect the Fed to raise its policy rate at least 0.5 percentage point, while another unusually large increase, I suppose that would be sharp, but large could happen over a period of time, right? Could be appropriate over the next meeting. That's a decision we'll have to do. We'll continue to make a decision meeting by meeting. Futures, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I think that might be all I wanted to cover. Yeah. From here, it is possible that the Fed slows its tightening. There's that word again, tightening. Tightening pace, reassured by the likely peaking of inflation and pullback in inflation expectations as oil prices have fallen. Peaking just means reaching the top of something, right? It's close to the top, and hopefully it will come back down. Ideally, it will come back down. All right, I think that was pretty much it. Yeah. Okay. There's the dude. There's the man himself. His name is Jerome Powell. I don't know much about the guy, so I can't make a judgment call one way or the other. I stopped paying attention to the news some time ago. I don't really pay attention to what is happening. Okay. All right, so let me know if you have any questions about this stuff. Again, a lot of the things that you see in news articles are also common expressions that you can use in daily life. I think that maybe the most interesting ones for this one are looming, something looming up, a scary thing, and also, well, sharp, I suppose, but tightening. Something is tightening, you get that feeling of constriction, which is usually a negative thing, usually financial. We are in a session because the inflationary policies of Sleepy Joe. Maybe so. Probably so. I don't know. Corinne, hello. Vissel is here. Jacked up, messed up, or anything similar? Yeah, it could be messed up. That's jacked up. Meh, not so common. When do we use was and when do we use did? Did would be for actions, and then was usually would be for a past adjective, or like I was tired, for example, or a past progressive tense, right? I was sleeping when you called, for example. Simple past would be did, focusing on actions. I did, and then the chores. I did my homework. We did nothing. Okay. Dream, hello, welcome everybody. Guys, friends, neighbors, if you haven't already, I would appreciate a hit of the like button. That would be awesome. I would be very appreciative. And also, if you haven't subscribed already, feel free to do that. I post videos every single week. Let me know what you'd like me to cover in those videos. I also do 2 of these live shows per week, every Wednesday and Friday. And it's Friday, so we're doing one. Here we are. Thank you very much. That is much appreciated. Raya. We've got Raya and Dream here, and Corinne. Pundit is here. He shared an interesting story about burning down a field on Wednesday. Insane. But a good story. And almost got no punishment whatsoever. Virtually got away with it. Unbelievable. Okay. Let's take one question and then move on to our next thing. Ought to. Yeah, this is a good question from background is lit. Thank you so much. Pundit says, how to use ought to. Now, ought to, when you say it, sounds a bit formal. It's the same in meaning as should. Now, should can be used in different ways. For example, I can recommend something. I can push you to do something. If I say, you should send a thank you email, that's me telling you what I think is best for you to do. Now, I could say you ought to send a thank you email, and that's technically the same meaning. However, that's not nearly as common as should. It's not nearly as common as I would if I were you. It's not nearly as common as I recommend that you. All of those are more common than you ought to. Now, if we say something like a general responsibility, a general duty, often about ourselves, it's okay to use ought to. It's fine. Again, you could use should there too. For example, we ought to think carefully before we make any very big consequential decisions. So we ought to do that. We should do that. It's a responsibility we have. Again, should, much more common. Have you ever seen the movie The Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan? It's a Batman movie with Heath Ledger as the Joker. And there's one scene when he comes into a room full of gangsters and they're making fun of his clothes. Well, you dress like a clown. What kind of suit is that? Because he's wearing purple. And he says, "You ought to know, you bought it." It's a joke. It's true because he, I think, stole a bunch of money from them and used that money to buy the purple suit. But notice the expression he uses there. You ought to know. You ought to know. Now, this is much more common than ought to by itself. Oughta. Notice the pronunciation. And I suspect pronunciation is the reason that ought to is not so common. Because it's kind of awkward to say. Ought to, ought to. It's a lot more difficult to say than should. It's just much easier, right? But oughta? Oughta? Now, could I say, you ought to send an email, a thank you email. You ought to send a thank you email. Yeah, you could say that. That feels, though, now instead of being kind of formal, like ought to feels very serious and formal and stiff, oughta feels very casual. So now I'm kind of throwing a suggestion at you over the fence, and whether you listen to it or not, maybe I don't really care. Like the Joker in that situation. You ought to know, you bought it. And that's like, yeah, you should know, and I'm kind of making fun of you. It's a very sort of a little more playful, much more casual, much less formal even than should. Like if he had said, you should know, you bought it, that sounds more stiff and formal than saying, you ought to know, you bought it. There's a famous song called You Ought to Know. Go check that out. You ought to do something, we ought to do something, we should, same meaning, but again, it just has this very casual feeling to it. And it's spelled O-U-G-H-T-A, oughta. Pronunciation, notice, is not otta, but it's changed to a light D sound. Oughta, oughta, oughta. You ought to know. Okay? So that's the general idea. That's generally how you use ought to, which is much more common as oughta. Good movie, by the way. What does duck it out mean? I don't know. Duke it out, I know. Do you mean duke it out or duck it out? Corinne, question from Corinne. I know duke it out, but I don't know duck it out. All right. Now, later in today's theme today is the end of the world. It's just our theme. But we're going to be exploring language related to talking about this. So we're going to get into a video, I think, next. And then later we're going to talk about some really useful expressions for planning and for preparing for things, okay? In case of a zombie apocalypse, of course. But we're going to look at that. And we're going to talk about predictions, different words for predictions. And we'll also talk about, I think we might look at one more article as well. And, of course, any questions that you have, I'll try my best to answer. If, Corinne, you can clarify your question there, I will answer that one as well. Esme, how can I improve my comprehension skills? There is no magic bullet for that one. It's just a matter of continually immersing yourself in the language and, very importantly, not giving yourself too much of an aid that makes you not actually use your brain. So, for example, if you watch a lot of movies, but you always look at the subtitles in your language, that's going to turn your brain onto your language, and you're going to almost completely ignore the the English that's being spoken, right? Now, that's fine if you want to just enjoy the movie, and that's also fine if your goal is just to stop once in a while and write down a couple of words and phrases as a learning tool. But if you're working on your comprehension, you can't do that. Can't do that. 101 Star Wars fan, I always speak basically at this speed, and I am at home. I'm currently at home. I'm in my home right now. I don't always speak this simply, though. There's a big difference between speed and simplicity. Those are two very different things. It also may be that I'm at home, married to a non-native English speaker, so it's another consideration. Okay. There are a lot of different ways that the Earth could end. Those are sometimes called extinction events. An extinction means a species or a large group are eliminated. Now, I find it interesting that people always assume that the end of the world is coming up. I wonder what it is in the human brain that makes us think that the end is near. You've probably seen predictions. People say, "Oh, the end is nigh, the end is near," and they'll tell you which date it's going to happen, and then we always pass that date and everything's fine. But I want to talk about some language that we can use for talking about world-ending events. Right, so we're going to look at a video, and then we're going to pull out a few things from the video as we go. I think it's funny that the video is from Business Insider, because why is Business Insider writing about or making videos about the end of the world? Who knows? I'll never understand. Let's go.
A day will come, hopefully far, far into the future, when the Earth can no longer support the thriving civilization that it now does. But how exactly will the world meet its end? Every star goes through life phases.
Notice that they say meet its end instead of just the world will end. Often, if you want to add a little drama to something or a little tension, you will say, she met her end. You're telling a myth or some sort of story like that. It's more dramatic that way instead of just saying the world ended. The world met its end by, and then they would say the cause or the result.
Our sun is currently in the most stable part of its life, and will remain there for at least another few billion years. But after several billion years of life, average-sized stars run out of hydrogen in their core, leaving only helium. This causes the center of the star to compress, which in turn allows the outer edge of the star to expand. Ultimately, the sun will grow past the Earth's orbit, engulfing our planet.
Okay, key word there. So this one is going to happen, will happen. So this one is not a maybe. This one will happen in several billion years. No big deal, right? Doesn't scare me. I'm fine with it. The key word there is engulf. To engulf something is to surround it completely, right? Often something is engulfed in water, completely engulfed. Okay, that could be a little area of land that's engulfed by a flood, for example. So it could be used that way. In this case, the red giant, as it expands, our sun starts burning helium, and it becomes a red giant and engulfs the Earth, completely surrounds it. But sometimes we use engulf to talk about emotional things, like engulfed by your parents' love, things like that. So you can use it in a lot of different ways. Generally, it just means to completely surround something.
We could suffer the same fate as the dinosaurs. When a 6-mile wide asteroid crashed into the planet 65 million years ago, it caused 70% of species to perish.
Perish is a formal way of saying die. So would you ever say, for example, my great-grandmother perished in 1986? Probably not. It's too formal. You would use perish usually to describe something at a larger scale. There are a bunch of species, I think he said 75% of all species on Earth, perished 65 million years ago when a giant asteroid impacted the Earth, including the dinosaurs. They perished? Well, in huge numbers. So when would we use the word perish? We might talk about, for example, COVID. I don't know how many millions of people died. We could say millions of people have perished due to COVID. For example, you might talk about a war in the same way. You could say thousands perished at the Battle of the Bulge. Things like that. You would talk about it sort of in a more academic way. You're standing back from it and you use perish.
NASA is currently monitoring over 1,000 near-Earth asteroids, and several hundred of them could be.
Monitoring just means they're paying attention to that. You monitor your vital signs, your blood pressure and heart rate. You would monitor your the stock prices when you might be looking at buying a stock in that company. You'd be monitoring that. That just means paying attention to it, keeping track of it. You're not really doing anything with it. You're not really taking action, but you're aware of what's going on. I'm just monitoring it for now, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe you're looking at a house price. We often use monitor for things like prices, things related to health, for example. Very, very common. Just paying attention.
70,000 years ago, a supervolcano at Lake Toba in Indonesia erupted, causing a volcanic winter lasting 6 to 10 years, and potentially a 1,000-year cooling period. There are 6 known supervolcanoes around the world. The one under Yellowstone National Park spewed over 1,000 cubic meters of ash.
To spew is a very interesting word. S-P-E-W is sort of like vomit or vomit out, but we use it often for volcanoes. To spew lava. If you're vomiting and you don't stop, just keep spewing vomit. It's disgusting, but that would be a phrase you could use. Maybe not as common as we would use for something like a volcano spewing out hot lava. Or maybe something in your household, like a kettle or something that's overflowing, spewing out hot water and steam. It's just this feeling of it being blah, 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 that sort of feeling. It's being spewed out. I almost said spewn out. Pretty sure it's spewed. Yeah, I actually went to Yellowstone last year, and it's really interesting. It is a supervolcano that erupted a long time ago, and it's still, there are these sulfur springs, and the water is hot. There is a lot of geothermal activity underneath Yellowstone National Park, and when you go there, it's constantly steaming. Driving down the road through sulfur steam smells like rotten eggs, and there are these huge pools with a lot of minerals. If you drink it, you'll die immediately. They're so rich with different minerals, and they're steaming and very vibrant and colorful. If you want to check out something cool, just search Yellowstone National Park, and then search steam or sulfur springs or something like that, and you'll see some very cool, colorful pools of sulfuric steaming water.
Ash and lava in a single eruption 640,000 years ago. Some researchers have estimated that 87,000 people would die instantly if it were to erupt today.
Okay, so that's not an extinction though of the species. That's not going to end the world. It's not 5 ways the world could end. That number 3 is a way that some people could end.
As many as 200 million people died from the Black Plague in the 14th century. Half of Europe's population died over the course of 4.
Okay, this video was made in 2015, before COVID, so, but COVID doesn't even compare to the Black Plague. Hundreds of millions of people died of the plague, and
4 years from that one disease.
200 million people.
Health epidemics can be devastating,
Across Europe.
even now with the benefit of modern medicine. If a deadly disease suddenly developed, or a terrorist group released a mutated virus, it would take months for researchers to develop a new vaccine or drug.
Hey, that
And
happened.
even then, there's no promise it would be effective.
Hey, that happened too.
The magnetic fields that
It's a
protect the
prediction.
Earth from the sun's highly radioactive
This one's kind
solar
of silly.
winds are the result of iron and molten metal present at the Earth's core.
Molten means liquid. If it's molten, it's normally in a solid state, but in this case, not in a solid state.
Over time, the movement of this liquid metal causes the magnetic field to shift and weaken in certain areas. We don't know for sure what this could mean for humanity. That would mainly depend on how long it takes for the magnetic field to shift, which can take thousands of years. But a weakened magnetic field can allow solar flares and cosmic background radiation to reach the surface of the Earth, killing many species. Most of these disastrous events...
Okay, of these, I would say, well, the red giant is not even a possibility, it's a certainty. It will happen. It just not yet, right? It's going to take a few billion years. Yeah, will happen eventually, right? Likelihood will happen in 5 billion years. So of those, I guess that's the one that's really going to end the world. The rest seemed kind of a little bit more local. Even the asteroid impact left 25% of species alive. So, although that would be pretty bad. Of those, I would say that one's probably the scariest, because life would be different completely. Even if you survived, it would be horrible. It'd be hell to live on the Earth after an asteroid impact of the same size that killed the dinosaurs. I think the last one, the solar flare, that one, I don't know why that one doesn't scare me, but I've heard that solar flares could wipe out the electrical grid, and that could cause a lot of problems. So that one would be very inconvenient, but I don't know if that would have, because you could just hide in your house and I think not be fried by it. I don't know that much about solar flares, but I think the word there would be, if the magnetic fields of the Earth change, we would be more vulnerable. And vulnerable means that it doesn't necessarily happen, but it could happen, or it's more likely to happen, because you don't have a defense against it. If you have a vulnerable immune system, that doesn't mean you are sick, but that means you're more likely to get sick, or it will be harder for you to recover from a sickness or from an illness, because your immune system is weaker. So you are vulnerable in that way. Someone could be emotionally vulnerable. Now, that could be a good thing. Maybe that vulnerability could allow you to be closer to others, and people might trust you more if you choose to be vulnerable. But often the word vulnerable is used in a negative way, to say that you're more susceptible, something is more likely to happen, something bad is more likely to happen, because you don't have a defense against it. All right, so those are the 5 ways that the world could end. The ones that are obviously missing here, that apparently they just want to be scientific, are a nuclear war. That would be a big one. I think that one's probably even more likely than the supervolcano in the near term, or the meteor impact. The other one would be artificial intelligence. We develop a general artificial intelligence, and it develops its own goals. And because it has its own goals and it's a super intelligence, it can control the banking systems and the economies of the world and resources. Then it's so intelligent, it no longer sees humans as equal to it, because it's way smarter than us. So we're like ants. So it doesn't hate us, but it's just doing its thing now. And it's so much smarter than us, we can't do anything to stop it. So we become like ants, and it may decide to squash us or not, put us in a human zoo or not. Slightly terrifying. I think that's more likely than a supervolcano in the near term as well. And then the other one is the zombie apocalypse. Zombies. But I don't think that one's very likely. A lot of movies would suggest that it is, but I don't know how you would. I've never seen a zombie. There are no zombies. as far as I know, so it seems unlikely. I don't know. All right. So of those, which ones do you think are scariest? I'm curious. Which ones are more or less terrifying? Or any of them terrifying? I think I'm not too worried about nuclear war, but artificial intelligence, I think that's definitely cause for concern. Because we have artificial intelligence and it's continuing to get better. So at what point does it become general and it decides that we're not very useful to have around anymore and then gets rid of us? I don't know. It's a little bit scary. Okay, Corinne says, don't know the spelling. Okay, all right, so duke it out. That's the one. All right. Corinne says, what does duck it out mean? And then later corrects that to duke it out. And it's a great question. So let's talk about it. To duke it out is to have a conflict intentionally as a way to resolve a problem. Now, it could be physical, as in a physical fight. I think it's probably even more often just a conflict to resolve something, which would involve a discussion or a negotiation, right? But often the suggestion of duke it out would be that it's very intense. It's a very intense process of trying to resolve something. It's not like after 10 years of negotiations, they finally resolved their differences and they came to a consensus and a compromise, and now everything's fine. Well, it's a long and slow process of compromise. No, duke it out feels very intense. There's this intense struggle between 2 or 3 parties, right? So, parent may say to children, you guys, okay, don't agree who gets to play the PlayStation after school. One player games, you want to play Fortnite, right? And we only have one. So I'm just going to let you guys duke it out, come up with a solution, and make sure that you're both happy with it. Okay. Duke it out means they might start to negotiate and say, oh, how about if you let me play right when we get home from school, then you get to on the weekend, blah, 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 blah. So they would have a maybe intense discussion about that. They're duking it out there. Maybe that becomes physical. Maybe they say, okay, whoever whoever submits the other person first, chokes them out first, gets to play the PlayStation after school. Okay, that could be fine. If you have that company negotiation and the heads of the company, the 2 CEOs of these 2 companies, they are doing a merger and there's a lot of negotiation happening. They're duking it out, and it feels like the news might describe it as these 2 CEOs got together over 3 separate weeks to duke it out and come to a maybe solution about how to distribute their respective workforces, right? So just this duking it out process is this kind of intense thing. It's usually, even though that sounds negative, used in a positive way, right? When I think of it, I think of kind of fighting, but I think of fighting as a way to just jump into it and figure it out. Let's do it. And so it's positive in that sense, even though the action or the description kind of feels negative, like fighting with someone or punching someone, right? What it doesn't feel like is a kind of relaxed and slow and lazy way to talk nicely about things, right? You describe 2 people who are having an argument about something. Well, they're really duking it out over there. They're really strongly debating something or yelling at each other even. So it could be an argument. It could just be an intense negotiation, conversation. It could be a compromise. In the end, it's not so much about the result. It's not so much about the outcome. It's more about this intense process. Outcome, then you would say separately. After duking it out for 3 days, they finally decided to go to Maui. So that would be duking it out and then finding a solution. Okay. So hopefully, Corinne, that answers your question. Again, when I want to find examples to really get my hands around something, I will usually go to something like the free dictionary and look it up and find some examples to really understand it. Then I feel more comfortable to use it myself. So feel free to do that, and I hope that answers your question. Is this a uniquely American expression? That I'm not sure about. Is it a British English expression or not? Let's search Duke it. I spelled it as duck. I'm guilty as well. Duke it out. The free dictionary. All right, let's check it out. Idioms, the free dictionary. Duke it out. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Watch out, those two guys are duking it out in the back of the bar. Okay, that's the physical one. We duked it out with some guy last night and earned myself a black eye. Okay, these are all physical. Okay, to physically fight with someone. To contend with someone or something for something. Yeah. In such a big family, my siblings and I always have to duke it out for our parents' attention. All right, that one fits pretty well. To have a fist fight, okay. Duke it out. John told George to meet him in the alley so they could duke it out. Okay, so this is interesting. You know, I'm seeing a very physical emphasis of this. Physically fight someone, and then down here to have a fist fight, and then fight it out North American informal. There you go. It's North American specifically. To have a fist fight. I think that the free dictionary is missing this a little bit. There is that feeling when you hear duke it out, but the frequency of use, I would say, is much less, and who am I to disagree with the free dictionary, but much less common to use in the physical fighting sense. Although we get that picture in our brains when we hear duke it out. That's the image. Much less common to use it to talk about the physical meaning, and much more common to use it to talk about something like this, to contend with. In such a big family, my siblings and I always have to duke it out for our parents' attention. So that's sort of an intense struggle for their parents' attention. So I think that way is actually much more common. If you were to do a survey and figure out what is more common, I think that's what you would tend to see. Just my perspective on that, of course. What's this? What is this? Okay, it's not playing. All right. Okay, good thing it played an ad. Stop. Okay. All right. Hey, we've got some new people here. That's great. Some people from Facebook. Awesome. If you guys haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, follow, whatever you see there. Much appreciated. As I mentioned earlier, also, there is a new course out. The course is 40 lessons. It is the most common English mistakes and how to fix them. I just launched this course yesterday. So it has been live for less than 24 hours. And I think the course is really good. I'm quite proud of this one. It's about 4 hours and 45 minutes long. As I said, it's 40 lessons. If you want to get the if you want to get the discounted launch price, whenever I launch a new course, I always launch it at a steep discount. And that is the lowest price that it can ever be at. Prices are always going up, so probably the lowest price you'll ever see it, ever. Feel free to check that out. Again, I think you'll benefit from it. I cover a lot of things. I've been teaching English for 10 years. I hear a lot of mistakes. And so because I hear a lot of mistakes, I'm able to kind of find patterns in what's really common and what's less common. And so I've tried to put all of those, or at least a large amount of those, into the course. It really covers a lot of things. And if you're interested in my just generally improving your English, then you can check out my courses on my website, especially the yearly membership, which is probably the best choice. Okay, what's next? What do we got? Okay, so we're gonna do some more Blackboard stuff because I have some expressions I want to talk about. Very common ones. Okay. Whether or not you think there will be a zombie apocalypse. What is a zombie apocalypse? A zombie apocalypse is the end of the world due to zombies, right? Why don't we change the background a little bit here? There we go. A lot of movies predict that the world will end because of zombies. My personal opinion, probably not. These aren't even real zombies behind me. These are just people dressed as zombies who... Oh, she's going away. She's going to grab a coffee. Yep. And another one went for a coffee. Oh, he's going to get a donut. And they're telling her, okay, you're done. Come back later. She's going to get a slice of pizza. All right, they're having their break. Hey, they're back. Oh, they're back. So these zombies, they are very angry at the plastic. And then they go for a break. They have a snack, and then they come back. And they're not strong enough to push through plastic, even. Basic plastic, they can't push through it. They're not even pushing that hard, really. It's almost like they're just doing it because it looks cool. Well, anyway, the reason I mention this, the reason I bring up zombies is some people, whether because of zombies or something else, want to prepare for the end of the world. Meteor, nuclear war, whatever. Now, while you may think that's crazy or very smart, the words, the phrases that we can use to talk about that are very useful. We can talk about a lot of things when it comes to planning, when it comes to preparing to get ready for something. So whether it's the zombie apocalypse, or just getting ready for winter, or going hiking for a week, or going on a vacation with some zombies and their donuts. There are a few phrases that we need, okay? So let's leave our zombie friends for a minute and hop over here to the board. We'll be back. The zombies will be back. They're getting some donuts. They're getting some baklava. Probably getting some matcha. Maybe getting a foot massage. Who knows? So when we are making a plan, we know that things may not go the right way for us. We know that things may not go as planned. Or sometimes, for example, planning a road trip, building your bunker. If you think the world is going to end, you might have an underground bunker, right? You might need to prepare for things that may or may not happen. Now, when things go wrong, when things happen that you don't expect, you might use just in case, which you may know here, just in case. And this is to suggest a possibility of something happening, and then we would have something ready if that happens. Okay? Now, we might say something like, bring an umbrella just in case. Now, do we need the next thing? Just in case what? Just in case it rains? You can have it, but if it's implied, you don't need it. So you might say just bring an umbrella just in case, and then stop there. Because what else would an umbrella be for? Frightening pigeons? Maybe. But probably it's for just in case it rains. So if you have this part at the end here, it rains, that's fine. But if it's implied, then you may not need to say it. Okay? Now you can start with just in case. You can say just in case we run out of, this is more for the bunker, okay? Because I'm paying tribute to the idea that the zombies are coming. Just in case we run out of drinking water, I'm going to get a specialized filter that will allow me to filter any kind of water, no matter how dirty it may be, and make it potable or drinkable, right? Well, that's fine too, just in case it rains. Now, if you use it at the beginning, we would probably say the whole thing. Just in case it rains, I suggest you bring an umbrella. Just in case it's not cloudy like it's supposed to be, just in case it's really, really sunny, maybe we should pack some sunscreen, okay? But now, this is just for things that might happen, but what about when those things that happen are definitely bad, definitely happen, and are as bad as they could possibly be? Then what would we say? This is another interesting expression, and again, it has a connotation of something very negative. If worse comes to worst. Now, I want to mention that this is sometimes, there are actually two versions of this. This is sometimes if worst comes to worst, instead of if worse comes to worst. I have personally always said if worse comes to worst. Many people will say if worst comes to worst. I don't think it really matters, okay? So if worst comes to worst, if worse comes to worse, right, we could always just get a hotel. That would be, you're on a trip, right, and it rains so much that you don't think you can camp. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, if the worst thing that could happen actually happens, then we can't camp like we planned. This is a camping trip that we're planning. What's the absolute worst possibility? We can't camp like we planned, so we have to stay in a hotel. So if worse comes to worst, we can just get a hotel room, get a room. Okay? That would be a common way to use it. If worst comes to worst, we move down to the bunker. Okay, so we hear on the news, for example, right, there are a bunch of zombies. They don't look that harmful. You know, they look upset, but they can't even push through basic plastic. Do we need to go down to the bunker? We could probably just stay at home. Just close the door, honestly. They can't even open a door. They look fairly inept, these zombies. So let's not worry too much about it. But, okay, what's the worst possible situation that could happen? Well, the worst possible situation would be that the zombies learn to turn a doorknob, or they're stronger than they look, or they run out of donuts, and they come for us, and somehow they find some strength, like in World War Z. They can climb over the walls. All right. If worst comes to worst, we can go down into the bunker. And the bunker is the underground area that's protected, far underground, with all of our supplies, umbrellas and rice, for example. So all you need to survive, umbrellas and brown rice. So if worst comes to worst, or worst comes to worst, just go down into the bunker. If the zombies learn to open doors. That's a pretty common expression that can be used for all kinds of different situations and scenarios, from very serious things to very ordinary things, very common everyday things, very, very common. Okay, we have two more I want to talk about, okay? One, to stock up. Again, very ordinary stuff here. What would you stock up on? Well, if you stock up on something, if you heard the word stock, that's often related to supplies in excess of what is needed in the moment. A store will have a stock of supplies. If we don't have any, then the store will say, sorry, we are out of stock. And you've seen probably this online shopping. You see a little thing that has a red circle and says out of stock. That means maybe they're waiting to get more. Or you see in stock, and that means they have it. We have 30 of those available left. We have 30 left. Sometimes we say 30 in stock. Well, to stock up is to accumulate more of something than you need right now. We might add the preposition on after stock up. So let's stock up on beans and canned soup. During the very beginning of COVID, there were rumors about maybe we wouldn't have supplies in the supermarket and things would run out. So just to be absolutely safe, I stocked up, not too much, but I stocked up a bit on canned soup and beans during the pandemic. That's what I did. Stocked up on those. That doesn't mean you fill your house with that stuff. It just means you have a bit of extra, more than what you need, just in case there's a period of time where you can't buy it, right? But that could be for all kinds of different things. You could stock up on supplies like this. You could stock up on things that you want or you like. For example, you might stock up on a certain type of shirt, right? If you're not sure if they will have, for example, this shirt is my favorite shirt, and I'm not sure if they're going to have this forever. They might just be doing it for the summer. Or I'd better stock up on that. I'd better get more than I need, because who knows, they might not have it anymore. Okay, so zombies are coming again. Oh no! Oh dear! Oh my! These terrifying zombies. We better stock up on donuts, because they look very hungry. And if we just keep throwing donuts out of the window, I'm sure they'll be satisfied and they'll eventually just go away. They keep going away and coming back. These zombies behave in a very strange way. Oh, they're back. Oh, they're very angry. Ooh. Oh, no. Oh, dear. Oh, my. Okay, the last one that we're going to talk about very quickly, I think probably most connected to this specific situation. And it's something that to be honest, I'm kind of interested in. And this is being off-grid. You hear sometimes off-grid or off the grid. Now, what does that mean? Well, usually this is related to utilities. And utilities are things that you use that come to your house, such as water. If you get water from the city, electricity from the local power station, you'll probably get some people get specifically water not to use but for heating, right? That would be an example. Things like that. Gas, natural gas, for example, if it comes to your house. But if you're off grid, that means you have your own. It could be your own way of making it, or you have your own locally. So for example, in the house that I live in, I don't get water from the city. I get my water from a well that is behind my house, and that water just comes from the ground. That's how I get my water. So when it comes to drinking water, I am living off grid. Being on grid means you're part of the public utilities. Okay? Internet would be another example, probably using a company's internet. So some people want to be kind of separated from that because they want to feel independent. Personally, I think it would be cool. Right now, I'm not completely off grid because I get electricity from the local wherever they make it and from the company that sends me electricity, and they send me a bill. I kind of am off grid with my heating because it's propane and it comes in these big tanks, but someone does come to fill it up. I don't make my own propane. So there you could say maybe off grid a little bit, but not really. For internet, definitely not off grid. But if you got a satellite internet and then your heating was from electricity and your car was an electric car, and you had solar panels on your roof that completely covered your electrical needs, and your water came from a well, then you could say that you are completely off grid, meaning if the world ended, as long as the sun was shining, you would be okay. Alone in your house, surrounded by a world that has ended. But at least you'd have electricity. At least you could watch TV if TV is still on. Maybe I've taken the example too far, but the grid is just this idea of being connected to utilities. So anyway, these are the ways that we I don't want to end on these people. These are the ways that we use common phrases to talk about either desperate situations or very common ordinary situations. I think off-grid is a little less ordinary and common, although people do talk about their utilities pretty often. However, if worst comes to worst, just in case and stock up are extremely common expressions that you could use either to talk about the zombie apocalypse or to talk about your everyday life. Okay. Okay, what the heck? What the heck happened? There we go. Someone else says duck it out, meaning please. What? I am live, actually. I just wasn't looking at the comments at the moment. Hey, thank you for the super sticker. Dampu Dulam, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Very nice of you. Much appreciated. Roxy Tana, is that secure? I'm not sure what you mean. Is that for me or is that for somebody else? Okay. Zombie or not, humanity deserves an apocalypse. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Karina. Why do you think we deserve it? Personally, I don't think we deserve it. I think that people have a natural fascination with it. That's what interests me, is I think we have a natural feeling that the world is going to end or should end, and we talk about the end of the world as a thing that's definitely coming up. But I wonder if it's maybe because we just have that idea in our minds from culture. There are traditions, especially past and present religious traditions, that include the idea of the end of the world as part of the religious tradition. For example, Jewish apocalyptic writing. There are a lot of books specifically about the end of the world, because the end of the world in that branch of Jewish thought is connected to what's called the eschaton or eschatology. Eschatology is simply writing about things that are going to happen toward the path of the end of the world. And the end of the world is a necessary event for God's plan to be considered complete. So in order for the completion to be reached, then you have to have the end of the world. And then after the end of the world, you have some, I don't know what happens in the Jewish apocalyptic text, but I was raised as a Christian, and in Christianity, there is a common idea that the people who believe in Jesus sincerely will be brought up to heaven at the end of the world, and there are these events that lead to it, and people who don't will be in hell for a period of time, and there's a lot of stories about what's going to happen in the future at the end of the world. The last book of the Bible is called the Book of Revelation. Book of Revelation has it's like a horror story. All of the stuff that happens, predictions about the future. The problem with it, I think, is that a lot of the apocalyptic texts, like the Book of Revelation, which I've read several times, they tend to be vague enough. Vague means not clear. They tend to be vague enough so that you could interpret it as you feel it should be interpreted. They're not specific enough to say, in 2029, things are going to start to go bad, right? I think that just gives enough room for people to say, oh, it's happening, this happening, that happening. It's leading toward it. But every time somebody makes a prediction that the world is going to end, there was one in 2012. There have been a bunch of people who have predicted specific dates. It never happens. I know a lot of people, though, who like to talk about it. And including, those are just two traditions that I mentioned, but there are other traditions in Hinduism and other religions and cultures that really focus on the end of the world and write text about that. That's called eschatology. And I'm fascinated by the fascination with the end of the world. I'm not interested in the end of the world, really. I don't think the world is going to end. I don't think anything is that simple. Yeah. Roxy Tana says, hope the end is soon because I can't pay off my debts. Oh, jeez. Little selfish, maybe, Roxy, there? Possibly? Potentially? Maybe a little bit? But funny. That's the key thing. Funny. Very funny. Chama, you're from Normandy. Okay, great. Cool. Nihat, welcome. Welcome, everybody. One thing, just bringing it back to reality, is not that this is the end of the world, but with all of this economic stuff that's happening, I've been kind of looking at a new car because during the pandemic, I thought I need a car because I decided I wanted to get a house. But to look at houses, you have to drive around to look at them. Okay, so I need a car. So I bought a car. But because of street parking, I thought it was going to be damaged. Cars are going to kind of hit it probably, and people are going to throw tomatoes at it. Who knows? I should probably just buy a, car, which I did, and was a good call because damage happened. People swiped it, and yeah. So now I'm looking at, maybe I should get a new car, something a little nicer. But now it's very difficult because there's a shortage of cars being manufactured, and almost any website that you go to, if you look at build out a new car, you'll see that they have a notice which says there's a shortage of especially chips that cars need for the electronics of the car. And because there's that shortage, there's a shortage of cars being manufactured around the world, but it's very acute in the United States. And that has driven the prices of secondhand cars up. So, for example, the car that I bought, I don't know how long ago, 2 years ago, if I sold it, it would be worth 2 years later. Car's value is supposed to go down a few like $5,000 more than when I bought it, because there's a shortage of new cars. So the secondhand car market has gone up. It's very competitive, and the value of secondhand cars have gone crazy. So that's a very interesting thing. And it's all because of the supply chain issues that we're seeing around manufacturing cars, due to especially the availability of chips. Global chip shortage makes it tough to buy certain cars. Maybe it isn't all cars. Global semiconductor shortage continues to squeeze the supply of microchips used to manufacture everything from cars to robotic vacuum cleaners. Okay. It is likely to persist or continue into 2024. That's a revision of the earlier prediction that chip manufacturers would be able to bring production in line with demand by 2023. In line with demand means that demand is higher than the availability. So if you go onto, for example, Tesla's website right now and you build out a car, you will see that it won't be available until maybe the beginning of next year. Let's actually try that really quickly. I'm just quite curious. Let's see. Tesla. Let's go to Tesla's website just for fun. And let's build out a Model Y. Okay, we want to order it. Let's just do this one. Okay. Here we go. Self-driving. Available. When is it available? That's what I want to know. Estimated delivery January 2023 to April 2023. So if you order one, it's going to take at least, now we're in July, so August, September, October, November, just at least 5 months to deliver a car. At least, and that's the lowest. That's the minimum, right? So that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. In some cases, they're replacing short supply chips with others that are more readily available, although that often requires software rewrites, testing, and validation. In other cases, they're just deleting or limiting the availability of features until such time as chips are available. General Motors, which is a very big car manufacturer that builds cars for several different brands in the United States. General Motors, for example, temporarily suspended seat heat on a number of its vehicles, although it promised to retrofit the feature when the necessary chips come in. Huh? Have I found a typo in consumerreports.org? Consumer Reports. Retrofit the feature when the necessary chips some in? Ah, a typo. Wow. Shame. 1.7 fewer vehicles in 2021 than in 2019, the last full year before the pandemic. Wow. That's pretty crazy. And here's the word tight, which we've seen a lot recently, related to something shrinking or becoming limited in some way. You could say tight budget or a tight supply of new cars means consumers can expect not to find deals or even the exact cars they want in some cases. Still, auto manufacturers have been directing available chip supply toward popular models. That's right. I've seen, for example, the car I have has been discontinued. They just stopped making it. And the one that I want, I can't find the exact one I want in stock. There are ones that are variations, but if I'm going to buy one, I want the one I want exactly, and they don't have it. It's limited, so it's pretty crazy. I'm quite curious. Is this something that is just going on here? Is this worldwide? How are you feeling supply chain issues where you live? Or if you aren't, what's that like? Mo Adam, do you know a country called Chad? You asking me? Yeah, I know Chad. Oh, Corinne and Chama are from France. Nice. Which car do I want to buy? I don't want to say what I want to buy. I feel like I shouldn't say. I don't want to say. Is it okay if I don't say, Karina? Please. Please. Hello, Oscar. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Well, everybody, if you've got questions, now's the time to ask. Feel free to ask questions about culture, pronunciation, word differences, vocabulary, phrases, idioms, grammar, or whatever. We're going to be back on Wednesday. We do these every Wednesday and Friday. Also videos several times a week. So make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't done that already, make sure you subscribe. Would appreciate if you could hit the like button, of course, and feel free to check out the courses in the links in the description. Very important. Karina wants a Tesla. I thought I wanted a Tesla, but now, just with the delayed availability, it's so late. I don't know if I do anymore. Why you said the end of the world? To be totally honest with you, Oscar, the only reason I mentioned the end of the world is because I want it's just a theme. Like, you make a theme and then you can build things around the theme, and that's useful. So the theme itself doesn't really matter so much. You just have to pick something, and then once you pick something, you can create those things around that thing that you pick, because otherwise you're just wandering around randomly, right? This is an English live class, right? And so I want to share useful expressions and culture and grammar and things like that. But in order to do that, you got to have a focus, because if it's just like, hey, let's talk about random stuff for 2 hours, I don't know. So that's the reason. That's the reason, Oscar. Just picked a theme. Because why not? Mo Adams says 45 degrees Celsius in Chad. What is that in Fahrenheit? Hold on, let me see. Celsius, Fahrenheit conversion. Okay, what is 45 degrees? 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Holy cow. Wow, that's insane. I don't know what the weather is right now. What's the temperature? 88 degrees. 88 degrees Fahrenheit is 470. Oh, that's 888. 31 degrees Celsius. So it's 31 degrees Celsius in the Hudson Valley, which is where I live. When you explain specific, such time or a specific time. Wait. When you explain specific, when, such time, or such a time. Oh. I think I'd go with such a time, to be specific. Yeah. That time, when I did that, for example. Yeah. I think I would go with such a time. It's supposed to rain. Let me see the weather. This week, 3 p.m., there's a 30% chance of rain. 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and 7 p.m. Ooh, 40%, 60% chance of rain at 6 p.m. today. This is very good news. I know that I've always thought, I know farmers care about rain and they think about rain and they check the weather all the time, but I've never really thought about it in that way. I've never really cared. It's dry, it rains, who cares? Until I needed rain for something specific. So when I moved into my house a couple of months ago, the yard, the front and the back, was really, really, really bad. House, great. Yard, bad. Very rocky. So the grass wasn't coming up, not very even. So at the beginning of, last month, I think it was last month, end of last month, I hired someone to bring a giant machine. Not a giant machine, a big machine with a thing on it that scrapes up rocks to basically take all of the rocks out of the yard and put them in a pile so that I could have a nice lawn, right? That's what I wanted. And so that took him 3 days to do in this machine, scraping. And we got a huge pile of rocks. It looks like a small mountain. The number of rocks that were in the yard is unbelievable. Many thousands. It's an insane number of rocks. Anyway, they're gone now. And there's dirt. We got some topsoil brought in. So you can't just plant grass on clay soil because it won't grow very well. So you need to buy topsoil. So then after you scrape out all the rocks, you put topsoil down, and then you plant grass. So you get rid of the rocks, put the topsoil in, plant the grass seed. Now, in this time, I have developed a hatred for birds as well. So several things have happened to me. I now care about the weather forecast, and I hate birds. It turns out birds love grass seed. Apparently, it's delicious. Grass seeds are so small, so I don't know why, but they're so small. You can barely even see them. They're very tiny. Birds love them. So 10 of them will fly in, land on the ground, and they're just going crazy on the grass seed. They absolutely love it. And even though there's a ton planted, I know that it's not good. So I run outside and I wave my arms and I scream and then I come back inside. But you have to be moving. I tried something static that doesn't move. It doesn't scare them. You have to actually be moving around. So it's a losing battle. But now I hate birds. Going back to the weather thing, though. The key thing for growing grass is rain. But since we planted the grass in June, the end of June, that's the hottest and the driest part of the year. This is a particularly hot and dry summer. So in the spring, it would have been perfect because it rains almost every day in the spring, at least every other day. At least it rains a little bit, right? So it would have already been a lush green lawn had we planted in the spring, but we didn't do it then. We did it in late June. It's very hot. It rains maybe once every 5 days for 20 minutes, and that's it. And I don't have time to go outside and water it myself, but it needs water to grow. So it's coming in a little spotty. It's the big area is still just dry dirt, and the birds keep coming. So it's a battle. It's a battle because I'm in a war against the birds. It's also a battle because I care about whether it rains or not, and it's not a very rainy season. If you look at the neighbors' yards, it's all brown. All of their grass has died because it's so dry. So it's a tough time to have a yard project like this. Those are just some of the struggles that I'm going through with a new house. But it's fun. I mean, it's interesting. I wish it would rain more. Anyway, today it's supposed to rain. It's supposed to rain at 6 p.m., 60% chance of rain. This is fantastic news. Karina says another expression that I don't understand and that I heard, to shoot the breeze. Yeah, you spelled it correctly as well. Great. That's a great question. I like it. We'll talk about that. Why not? Why not? Okay. Corinne asks a question that I don't understand that I heard, to shoot the breeze. And I'm not sure if I spell it correctly. You did spell it correctly. Perfect. Perfect spelling. Just like this. Shoot the breeze. Sometimes it helps to know why something means what it means, and sometimes it helps to understand the individual words, for example, in a common expression, right? But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't help at all. Sometimes you have to just completely ignore why it means this, and even completely ignore the words inside of the expression. Like break a leg. Break a leg means good luck. Well, okay, there's a kind of irony going on there. Saying I want you to break your leg, break a leg, is kind of an interesting sort of sarcastic thing. I don't really know where it comes from. I don't really care. It means, hey, good luck, break a leg, when you want to wish someone well if they have a presentation or something like that. But it's not useful to think about the breaking of the leg when you're saying it. You mean good luck, so you say that. I think it's the same for this. If I try to think about shooting the breeze, breeze is a light wind, right? A light wind. What am I, shooting it with a gun? I don't know. If that helps you visually remember it somehow and that's your little trick, great, cool. I say forget about that. Shoot the breeze means to, in a relaxing setting, kind of do nothing. Maybe that means having a casual chit-chat, small talk. Maybe that means nothing. Maybe that means just sitting around on our phones, checking our respective social media. Maybe that means we're just kind of staring into the sky, looking at birds, right? We're not really doing anything in particular other than passing time. Now, this is used in a couple of different ways. Sometimes we use shoot the breeze as an invitation if we don't want to do anything in particular, but we may decide once we're together to do something. You want to come over and shoot the breeze? A friend might say to another, probably a pretty close friend. You wouldn't say this to someone you don't know well, but a close friend, someone you know really well, would you like to come over and shoot the breeze? You come over, kind of sit around, have some tea, and then we might decide, hey, let's go see a movie. Or, hey, let's go shopping. So it doesn't mean to do anything in particular. It means nothing in particular, nothing special, really just passing time. And if I don't want to specify the activity, like shopping or watching a movie, then I might say shoot the breeze as a kind of placeholder, right? It's a useful placeholder. Because otherwise, what am I going to say? Would you like to come over and do nothing? Right? I don't know. It just sounds weird. But that's kind of what it means, just passing time. But you could sometimes use this expression when you want to talk about waiting, passing time while another thing is happening. I was just shooting the breeze while I waited for my friend to arrive. But after an hour, I decided to leave. So I'm kind of just passing the time until my friend gets there. What does that mean? Well, it depends on where I am, right? If I'm at a bus stop, that might just mean looking at my phone, or maybe, I don't know, throwing pieces of a bagel to the pigeons, or whatever comes to mind in the moment, right? Notice, though, I didn't use the past tense of shoot. That's very key. Whether it's in the future or the present or the past, we don't change that verb. unless it's to add an ing. What's the past tense of shoot? S-H-O-T, shot. Should we say we just shot the breeze? I think you might hear some people say that, but generally no. Were shooting, maybe. Was shooting, maybe. Maybe. That would be okay if it's in the past, right? So whether you're passing time or that's a thing that you use as a placeholder, this is an extremely common expression, and you might use it as an invitation to say, would you like to shoot the breeze? Or as a description, we were shooting the breeze. We are just shooting the breeze. We'll see you in 20 minutes, right? If it's the present, it's shooting, ing. It's okay to add an ing, just don't change it to the past tense. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, the best thing to do in this case is to look up the expression, read a few sentences, try a few yourself. That's the only way to get a feeling for something. Knowing is one thing, knowing how to use it is another. And unless you know how to use it, I would say you don't really know it. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's just check out what they have here on, let's just check out what they have here. Thank you for the great question. Corinne, am I saying your name correctly, by the way? I hope so. The free dictionary. Shoot. Sometimes you hear American style, you would be shooting, instead of shooting the breeze, they say shoot. You'll hear people say, shoot the shit. That's kind of a redneck countryside thing. What are you guys doing? I'm just shooting the shit. I'm from Ohio, so that's something that we would say. Okay, let's see what we get here. Shoot the breeze on idioms. Ooh, interesting. Oh, I better show this. Okay. So here we've got shoot the breeze on the free dictionary. To chat or converse aimlessly or casually. That aimlessly is key, without any serious topic or conversation. I would, again, not even say it has to be chat. It's often used for example, just sitting and two people separately looking at their Instagram or scrolling through TikTok. You're over there and I'm over here. We're waiting for somebody. What are you guys doing? I'm just shooting the breeze. We're not even chatting. It could be chatting, of course. It is often sitting casually chatting about nothing in particular. But I want to be clear. It doesn't have to be chatting. Could be, but doesn't have to be. Shoot the breeze. If you shoot the breeze, you talk with other people in an informal and friendly way. Again, I don't know. We sat in the bar shooting the breeze. Oh, they're really focusing on the talking thing. I think that the meaning or the usage has evolved from simply talking. And again, I hate to disagree with the free dictionary, but I have to a little bit. It has evolved from just talking. What have we got here? Customers always want to shoot the breeze in the store. What does that say? In the store before they buy something. Okay, yeah, I suppose that works. I don't know. I'm not crazy about their definition here because I think it's a little bit limited. Hello from Ukraine. Ola, welcome. Hello. I'd love to spend the day shooting the breeze. There you go. I think that's a great usage of it. Shooting the breeze in your Tesla. 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 Absolutely. Oh. Absolutely. Our zombie friends are still here. Get out of here, zombies. Get out of here, zombies. All right. Well, I think it's time for me to call it a day. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate all the questions. And I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you have some fun plans and enjoy yourselves shooting the breeze or doing some fun activities, whatever it happens to be. If you haven't already done so, would appreciate a like. That helps out the channel a lot. New videos coming out next week. I have a culture course coming out very soon, so appreciate that request. Thank you very much. If you want to check out my latest course, I just launched that yesterday. There's a special discounted price for that course. If you'd like, you can check that out. I'm posting it here in the YouTube. It is the lowest price that it can possibly be. That's nearly 5 hours of lessons covering the most common English mistakes and how to fix them. And it's 40 lessons covering those. So I think you'll enjoy that. If you've enjoyed any of my other courses, I think you'll like that one. That special launch price is the lowest price that I can offer. That will expire in 3 days. Otherwise, feel free to check out the yearly membership on my website if you want to get a one-on-one evaluation with me, unlimited access to all my courses, and access to an English learning community WhatsApp group. Okay? So again, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. We'll be back on Wednesday of next week. And in the meantime, have fun. Stay safe. Bye-bye.